Welcome to So You Want to Start a Nonprofit Planning and Implementation Process. We're going to look at before, during, and after. What you will learn today in this training will be part one, before, those things you need to think about before you even apply with the application process. Your vision, your why that is important, and we need to look at its viability. Assembling all the required items, and building your plan. Then we're going to look at during. That's part two, the filing process, assembling those required items. And then we're going to check out a little bit after you've done the filing process and what's next. Okay, when you want to start a nonprofit, I want you to understand it's like an iceberg. Most of the work and implementation is in the planning process, and it is just like an iceberg. Most of it is underground. You don't see it. It's when the organization is running smoothly, all of this planning, strategically thinking about what you're going to do, has already happened. So just know planning will be and continue to be a huge part of what you do. So let's look at your vision, your why. This is going to be the heart of what happens. Why are you starting a nonprofit? Do you see it as a business opportunity, a career path, additional income? Really, what you should be thinking about is how you're going to solve a problem. And this might be a pain or passion for you, your why. That is the most important reason why you should start a nonprofit. And what problem are you going to be solving? That's where you're going to answer the following questions. Is it needed? I love that you want to think about having impact in the community, but have you done what is called market feasibility? Are there other organizations out there that already do what you're thinking about? Just think about all of the animal rescue organizations and those organizations for veterans. There's tons of them. Is another one needed? Let's find out. What you want to do is see if what you're thinking about is viable. The next steps are strategic and build the foundation of your organization. You're going to start assembling some tools to make it take off and be viable. And to do that, you're going to create what is called a program plan. If you've listened to a lot of the business coaches, they will tell you to do a business plan. But you have to remember, you're a for-purpose business. And how you measure success is not with profit and losses. It's about the impact you have. And a program plan will map that out for you. Let's talk more about that. Why you need a plan. First, it creates a cohesive vision and roadmap to greatly improve your chances for success. In your workbook, you'll see the strategies of how to go about thinking about that on page 4. You should look at that page now because it's asking you to do vital strategies and list what you're trying to do. The plan will demonstrate commitment to success. It will help you gain support and establish credibility with your stakeholders. It will help you attract board members because you can use this plan in a board packet, a presentation packet, when you're trying to attract and talk to candidates, inviting them to be a board member. Having a plan is a great tool to use so that they can see and understand your vision, but also it shows that you're dedicated to success. It also is a great tool to attract donors, funders, and sponsors because they can see the type of impact your organization will have in the community, in the world, short-term and long-term. It's a great tool and it creates the right mindset. It talks about impact. What type of plan do you need to use? We always recommend the logic model program planning tool. It is the best tool in the industry. It has been used for years. It is a requirement for most of the major funders, and it is what they want you to use when submitting a grant or your follow-up evaluation reports. It also is used by over 60% of the large nonprofits. It will help you create the right mindset because you're thinking about the end results. Charity think is where you think of your organization as always needing something, that you should be given everything. Once again, remember, you're a for-purpose business. And in order to be successful, you must invest in your organization. Poverty mindset makes you think that you never have enough resources to do what you want to do, that you can't invest in your organization. Having the right plan and knowing exactly what your impact is, exactly what your resources are needed, activities, you will be able to get out of charity think and poverty mindset. Once you have the plan well established, it's going to give you some really strong cues as to an organizational name. Like I said, this is all happening before you file any paperwork. Your organizational name is going to represent what your program is about, what the impact you're aiming for, because your organizational name is now going to become your brand. Look at some of the details on page 5 in your workbook. Organizational name is very important. It sets the stage for your brand. And you want to make sure that your brand is first informative. The name should really talk about what you do. Something as simple as the Animal Rescue Foundation. It really tells you exactly what it's doing. It should be easy to remember. That means don't have a lot of acronyms or strange spellings. You'll see some of that in your workbook. Check it out. Also, check the availability before you pick the name. Don't get married to a name until you see that there's no other organizations with that same name and that the domain is available, because you will need to establish your presence with a website, and you want your website to match the name. Once you have selected the name, it's even though you haven't filed any paperwork, you want to start the buzz. This is where marketing begins. You know you're going to form the organization, you've selected the name, and now you can really start the buzz because you're going to start building that website. You can create social media pages, and you can start communicating and sharing the name just to build awareness. It's never too early to start the buzz, because if people hear about it, they're going to want to have more information. It's also time to start thinking about the leadership. You're going to need at least 3 board members to file your paperwork. So that means you need to start recruiting your initial board of directors. That's where that program plan will be very useful. You can share that program plan with candidates or potential people that you think will be of value to the organization. You know they have to demonstrate a passion for the cause. You don't want just anybody on your board that's not going to have a passion for the cause and want to be involved. You want to make sure that they have the same vision for the organization. Unfortunately, I've seen often where board members come on board and really want to change the vision and have the organization go in a new direction than what the founder wanted. And it becomes a real problem within the organization. And also, Are they a visionary leader? And there's a couple more tips I want to give you about selecting your first board members. It is not necessary to always say you have to have a lawyer or a CPA on your board. One of the jokes I give is, so are you planning on getting in trouble? Is that why you need a lawyer? You can always hire a CPA to do your books or bookkeeping temporarily once a year. You don't have to have them on your board and take up a valuable space. You want to think about your organization needs. What type of person will actually help your organization grow? Look on page 6 and it will give you some more ideas about board leadership and development. Next, you want to think about your seed funding. Now, a lot of these items are in your program plan again, because they helped identify some needed program funding goals. But initially, you're going to need the filing fees. Depending on what state you're in, those fees vary. IRS is pretty consistent, but you need to know which application you're filing. And once again, that is determined through your program plan. What are your development costs? Do you need some funding initially to even launch? Yes, you do. Because if you want to launch a program at this point, unless you have prearranged or talked to some funders that are going to come on as founding sponsors or funders, you haven't really generated any donations because you're not an official 501c3 organization. At this point, all of your support would be just founding sponsors. You're going to need marketing and branding tools. Do you have a logo? That website needs development, and those all have overhead costs unless you know someone that can do that for you. But be careful about what's on your website. There are certain things that will make a nonprofit website valuable and an asset to the organization versus just a placeholder. You don't want a placeholder type website. And then your program costs. Once again, that was identified in that program plan that you did. I would say aim for about $5,000. You might not need that big chunk of money right away, and it can be gathered over time or spent over time. But that's a good starting place to really get going with filing and developing all of the material and collateral that you'll need to start some of your programming. Now we're going to go into the next part. This is the filing. This is like what I call during, and it's part 2. You now have your program plan. You know what your vision is. You know what you're trying to do, the type of impact, and you can create your purpose statement from that program plan because you've identified what you're trying to do. So we're going to start by creating the entity. You will need documents, and you're going to have to ensure that it's in compliance with not only the state, but with IRS. Look at page 8 in the workbook for some of those details. Heading toward the creation, will it be exclusively for charitable, religious, educational, and scientific purposes? If you can't answer yes to this question, and hopefully that was clarified when you did the program plan, then actually filing for a nonprofit is not for you. So you're going to be creating what is called a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. And just know, in different states, they call it different things. In fact, it is actually a tax code. IRS does not call it a nonprofit. It is tax code 501c3, which gives you certain tax benefits under the umbrella of public charity, which means you receive over 1/3 of your support from the public, that you have what is called an exempt purpose activity, and you solve a problem with unique program. That problem is something that the government does not do. That's why sometimes they call it non-government organizations, NGO, because they established this tax code to allow organizations certain benefits in areas that the government does not service. In your workbook, there's a filing checklist. And to go through that checklist, you're going to have to make sure that the organization is exclusively for charitable, religious, educational, and scientific purposes. Does the purpose statement that you've created reflect one of those goals? For example, it says, you might say that we're going to provide educational training on financial literacy, or create educational forums on the environment, or we're a charity organization to help the homeless. All of those are purpose statements that include one of those terms. Will the majority of funding be from general public? And that's not so hard. If you're accepting donations or sponsorships, that's the general public. Also, even if you might set up some different revenue streams and sell merchandise, as long as that merchandise is aligned with the mission, it has something to do with what your mission is, it's not considered external revenue streams or earned income. It's still a part of your revenue stream for the mission. You have secured the EIN. Now, you don't want to get that EIN until after you had definitely determined what the name of the organization will be. And just a tip, never pay for an EIN. They are free through IRS. You have recruited 3 board members and designated the officer roles. That means with each of those board members, one is the president, one is the secretary, and one is the treasurer. You will need those officers to file both on the state and IRS levels. You understand and will state no board member will be paid. That's one of the clauses in the IRS regulations. It's indemnification, but IRS also has several other clauses that have to be included. You have identified an in-state address and identified who is your resident agent. That's how you can establish and file in a particular state. Once you have decided which state, you know what that state requirements are to file. Each state is different, unfortunately. You have the seed funding, at least for the fees and initial development. Every state, as I said, has fees, and IRS has a fee just to file. You have created a 3-year budget projection. Now, you'll need that 3-year budget projection to determine which IRS application you need to file. Because if the budget projection goes over $50,000 per year, that means you need to file the appropriate application to meet those requirements. And finally, your bylaws must be completed and have the IRS compliant clauses included, because the application asks, are they there? And often it will ask what article number and what page. I know a lot of this information can be confusing. The application process, I know, can be confusing. We have helped many individuals that have actually even tried using lawyers and CPAs, and we've had to clean up their applications. We're nonprofit specialists. And for you, many of the confusion points might be because you're unfamiliar with the terminology. There's a lot of terminology that is just specific to IRS codes and becoming a nonprofit. You might not know how to pick the right classification. In the applications, they don't tell you, they just tell you to click a box. And if you don't know which box to click, you might select the wrong classifications. Your bylaws will be checked. They will send a letter and ask, do you have the different clauses that are required? If you do the long form with the application, they will ask you to attach the bylaws. So those bylaws must be completed and they must be compliant. Unfortunately, simple mistakes will delay the process or even result in a denial. We say don't take a chance having the applications denied. If you want help, get the help you need and let an expert do all of the work. Hi, I'm Dr. Victoria Boyd, and I am a nonprofit specialist, and I can help file all of your paperwork on the state and IRS levels. You won't have to think about a thing. You can start thinking about your program and really implementing what your organization is going to do without thinking about the application process. Let us do it for you. Also, what's next? Now that you know what the name is, you've got your paperwork file, it's time to really start that organizational development. And we can provide support. We have what is called concierge services. That is, we are your on-call nonprofit consultant. We don't set a project, but together we work on what needs to be done next. And we're at your fingertips to help you get through it. We also can help you with your website and ensure that it has all of the details that a nonprofit website should have, plus that it's working for you. We also can help you with marketing, thinking about what are some good details you need to have in place, your collateral, using your branding. How are you going to talk about and communicate with the community? Do you have a Google Ad grant? We can set you up with a Google Ad grant that gets your nonprofit $10,000 per month to run ad campaigns. That's a great tool, and it can be the first funding that you might be able to set up. We also have training and resources. Previously, we talked about creating a program plan, and we highly recommend creating your program plan using the logic model, because it is the best tool in the industry. And we have a special training on learning how to set up the program plan and implement it. Many small and mid-sized nonprofits think that it's too complex or they just don't have the expertise. That's why we created the training for the Logic Model Plan. See what it's all about and sign up today at LMPP. That's Logic Model Program Planning. lmpp.now.site. There's also additional resources, Nonprofit Corner podcast. Have you heard some of our episodes? Go find the podcast on YouTube. It's on the Philanthropy Foundation's network, TPF network, or Spotify. We have special guests that are nonprofit experts, and they share tips, strategies, resources, everything a nonprofit would need for organizational or professional growth. Google Ad grants. We can help you get your Google Ad grant. We can also help you manage it. So check out our Google Ad grants. We can also help you set up and build a nonprofit website. We have a full book list of books valuable to the nonprofit sector. Plus, we have a whole page of tools. You can find all of this at nonprofitcorner.org, brought to you by the Philanthropreneur Foundation. Thank you for attending. So you want to start a 501c3. We hope it's been helpful.